Welcome to Between Two Clinicians, the podcast that gives you a backstage pass into the mind of two therapists. I'm Talia.
I'm Adam Luke. We've spent years helping others navigate the complexities of their minds and relationships.
In this podcast, we're flipping the script, and we're sharing our own unfiltered insights. No topic is off limits, and no issue too taboo. We're ready to tackle the tough stuff with honesty and empathy. Let's dive in. Today's episode is a timely topic, given that most of America's either most or least favorite holiday, depending on when you listen to this, is coming up or has just passed.
Ted Bundy did not like this one, but there are other people who have enjoyed Mother's Day. So
love it. Here for it.
Exactly.
It's a contentious one in my household too. I'm getting now with Father Algorithm, I'm getting so many videos sent to me, not by people, but just like by the algorithm of like, Mother's Day is for the moms in the trenches. They should have a separate grandparents' day. Like a lot of the things that I'm like, oh, I had never thought about that. Because growing up, which is the theme of today's episode, growing up, when you're looking at your parents, at least up until a certain point, your parents are ideally, right? And I'm talking about idealization, not like this is the ideal. They're your superheroes. They're infallible. They can do no wrong. Obviously, if you had authoritarian parents, then you were probably afraid of them. That's not exactly about today's episode. It's more like you looked up to your parents and you thought they knew everything, that they were going to be there to save you, to protect you. Not that doesn't always shake out. But that is the belief that children have up until a certain age. And I call it the age of when you realize your parents are people. Normal, run-of-the-mill human beings who have made mistakes and don't know everything and probably don't know a lot of what you think that they know either. And everyone reaches that age of parents as people at different ages. I've worked with clients who are couples where the wife reached out at like 12 years old and the dude is like still not there and he's 35 or 40. They're both the same age, by the way. They're not meeting at 35 and 12, but they are both 35, but she has a 2-decade jump on, I've known this about my parents. And because of the dynamic that can cause within yourself and also within the family system you came from or the family system that came from you, it is so multi-layered when we're not all on the same page. I'm not saying this is an episode about, you and I are both parents. This is not an episode to bash parents. This is an episode to create mental space for a topic and an experience that so many people go through that I don't want to end up like my parents, but I like them in some traits, but not these traits. And did they think this when they were my age? Like, when do we ever feel like an adult? When are they going to have this figured out? There's so much that goes into this topic that usually comes to a head around these holidays that are, again, just like Thanksgiving and Christmas, absurd to see those people again so soon and have it be so close together. Why are Mother's Day and Father's Day only a month apart? Like, we should have it one per quarter. Space it out, one per quarter. Mother's Day is Q1, Father's Day is Q2, Thanksgiving's Q3, and Christmas is Q4. That's it.
That would actually work really well. And I would remember to do my taxes so much more if that was the case.
Yes.
But yeah, this is an interesting dynamic to sort of head into because we've got this. When does my mother become more of like a mentor or a friend in life versus that authority figure? I think that's when you're talking about paying attention to our spouse sometimes and being like, oh, wait a second, you haven't made that transitional jump in a relationship with your parents.
Right.
Because we've all navigated that one way or another where we've had some significant other or spouse, whatever it might be, and we can recognize like, oh wow, you like jump to the needs of your parents almost like you're a child, like you're 8 years old or 10-year-old, mommy daddy calls, boom, immediate need, like I have to turn towards them, and you sort of forget your whole family system that exists outside of them. Like, dude, you leaved and cleaved, my friend. Like, you have your own bubble now, and so how do you stand up for that? And I think in Western culture, it's interesting. In Western culture, I'm also going to include like the British. And I know people are like, well, that is the West, Adam. But the reason why I'm saying this is because if you pay attention to like American and British culture in this one area, like there's a lot of endangeredness to serving our parents once we're adults. You know, so like, oh, well, what mom wants, mom's going to get. What dad wants, you know.
Mhm.
And so you can even watch as like siblings start to work together to try to meet the like overarching needs of parents when these siblings might have all their own families. It's not necessarily anymore, we don't love you enough to make certain things happen. It's that they logistically can't work. What happens when all the siblings are in different states? What happens when we
Mhm.
have our own jobs and we have soccer practice and they have t-ball and this one's got gymnastics, and like it's all over the place. And I think that that's
Mhm.
when we have to wake up to the realization of like at some point your parents' influence in your life is no longer the primary influence in your life. So when do you wake
Mhm.
up to that? And that's where there's a lot of battles that happen between spouses. Now, when I'm dealing with
Mhm.
couples, normally what happens is we'll sit down and one spouse will be hypercritical about the other's lack of detaching
Mhm. That's always
from
been
a
me.
certain, family
Mommy.
structure. Yeah, mommy, daddy, whatever it is. But what's
Mhm.
interesting is this always comes, not, I shouldn't say always, but it does seem like
Typically.
at times, typically, there's like this shaming of like I can shame my spouse out of it, right? When all of a sudden I'm moving into this spot where like now I'm making myself an adversary to my spouse while they're also not able to meet the needs of this other person who's been invited, uninvited into our relationship.
Which is such a beautiful example of the projection that that child probably felt like within their own family system.
Mhm.
Here I am trying to meet the needs of my parents, but I can't, and I'm either shaming myself or being shamed by my parents for being unable to meet those most often inappropriate or enmeshed level needs.
Mhm.
And it's almost like a gentle way of bullying your spouse of like, "I'm not in this alone." Like,
Mm,
I feel threatened by how close you are with your parents or how what I've worked on with my couples that I've worked with, how delusionally close that you are with your
yeah,
parents. Because how you idiot, how have you not seen that they are, they're again fallible people. They are people who have made mistakes. How can you still be looking up to them? And on the converse of that, like, how do your parents not have any influence? Like, if your parents were to tell you to do or not do a certain behavior, even though we're all adults, you just don't care that they've mentioned that, right? Which is the end of the spectrum of what you're saying, that our parents should not have the mental um like shackles on us when it comes to
correct.
making decisions in adulthood. That's not going to lead to healthy
Mm-mm.
individuation of like, here's my genuine decision. However, I don't know your we haven't talked about this. We've talked about being parents, but we haven't talked about this philosophy. Personally, I don't think that being this is going to sound so ironic when I double it with the next thing I'm going to say, but I don't think that being a parent in terms of the influence or the child's desire to be attuned to ends at a certain
Mm,
age, like arbitrarily, like 18 or 25.
yeah.
And there are times where the child as an adult feels like, I feel complete. I feel like
Mm,
you're not a mom in the sense that I knew you when I was growing up. Yes, you have the role of mother or father in my life. However, I now view you as an adult, whether you're competent or incompetent. I view you as an adult, whether I can confide in you or not. And I work with a lot of children of family systems who don't have good function, or the parent has a personality disorder, usually narcissistic personality disorder, or a substance use problem
mhm,
that created such an emotional immaturity that the adult, the child in the
mhm,
family, but the adult as in society is now going to the parent as an adult saying like,
mm,
hey, I'm running this decision by you, or I'm wanting some empathy or validation, which is again part of a
yeah,
normal adult relationship. And the parents like, well, quit complaining, I'll give you something to cry about, you're being lazy. They're being so critical,
mhm,
and that makes the adult who's the child of those parents feel like they're small again, like you were
correct.
saying off air, that 8-year-old or that 16-year-old that's like, okay, well, I'm great, that's all I amount to. And then that perpetuates the feeling
Mm,
of never being good enough, which then that child, now an adult, takes out into society and projects onto the partnership,
yeah.
or villainizes the significant other's parents, because I'm envious deep down that you guys have a close relationship that seems somewhat healthy or functional or competent, and that feels like a threat to me because I'm trying to leave that family system.
Yeah, it's the pick me, pick me, pick me when I'm not actually in that situation just yet.
Mhm.
And we can feel that way. Our anxiety, our defenses, our defense mechanisms pop up because we go, oh,
Yeah.
wow, I'm in competition with this relationship. But in reality, most of the time, it's actually moving into the spot of maybe encouraging our spouse to like, do you actually enjoy this kind of relationship with your parent?
Mhm,
Because I found that you get a lot more traction with your significant other when you come in and you ask questions that are rooted in curiosity. Like, "Hey, I can see you're not enjoying these parties or these experiences with your parents, but we keep having them. Like, yes,
mhm,
I'm here as being a supportive spouse with you. I'm not going to leave you in this process, but I do have to ask, why do we open ourselves up to that exposure? Because you feel like you have less energy, you're less happy. Like, do we want to survive Mother's Day? Do we want to survive the holidays? Do we actually want to
mhm,
enjoy them? Like, what
mhm,
are we being intentional with that? And when we ask those questions, then that can be sort of the mechanism that kickstarts the like, oh, well, maybe I have to have this relationship with my parents different. You know, a relationship that I have no problem talking about is a relationship I had with my grandmother, because my grandmother was the type of person that could not let go of people.
mhm.
She was
Mm,
very much the matriarch of that family, and she did not want to let people have power. And what was interesting is we were fighting over nothing, right? It's like just allow people to exist or allow people to be adults or allow people to have a life that's outside of your
no.
life. And instead, everything always had to be malicious. So I, at a certain point in time, started not coming around a lot. Why? Because it wasn't enjoyable to be at her house. I would be at her house and she would constantly be asking me, "Why do you never come around? Why are you?" It's like, well, I'm here now, right? And I could even notice this as like a 16-year-old of like, I'm here now. Like, do you want to do something together? And it was always shame, shame, shame. Never good enough. Never good enough. Never good enough. And so I stopped bringing myself around. What was interesting though was watching how the system was pissed off at me for doing so. Like I'm blessed to have had a father that said, if Adam doesn't want to go to certain events, then he doesn't need to go to those events. But
Wow.
my mom, who again she's sort of allied and triangulated with her mother,
Mhm.
she's like, well, but if you do that, that puts a lot of pressure on me, right? Well,
Right.
this is like the introduction of like obligation. Like, no, 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 do
Mhm,
this for me so it's not so bad for me.
mhm,
But these were like conversations I was having with my own mom. Like, we're not having fun. This isn't
mhm,
enjoyable. Why are we doing these things? And it always came back to that, well, we have to. And I think that that's a real like eye opener when your spouse says, well, I just have to. Well, no, you don't have to host lunch, dinner,
I
holidays,
must. You
whatever.
don't understand. I
Yeah.
must. Otherwise, I will perish. And it's like, have you ever considered where that belief comes from? Like, what is compelling you that it feels or is being placed in your brain as like, no, I have to do this or else? Where is that coming from?
Well, and I'm not even mad at the thought process because at some point in time, the thought process was true. You know, another
Correct.
person that I worked with was a professional athlete that she very well recognized, if I don't do what my parents want, they're not going to get me this stuff so I can have a good like at that time she was in
Mhm,
collegial sports, but I won't
mhm.
be able to do what I need. So there is this endeared part,
You
but
play a
all of a
role.
sudden when you've got your own money, you got your own ability, like
Mhm,
you can sever those ties. At some point in time,
mhm,
yes, you had to go hook, line, and sinker because they had power over you. But if
mhm,
you're 19, 20, 34, or just simply living on your own, this is no longer a relationship that's based in obligation. You
mhm.
can meet your own
Yeah.
needs, but why are you communicating in a way that you couldn't? Why do you say that to
Yes.
yourself?
Yes. And I think the quality of a relationship that you have with your parents or that your parents have with you, whichever way you're looking at
Mhm,
it, when you are no longer reliant on them to
mhm,
meet those basic needs and to sustain your life says a lot about how the child, like for the parent, it says a
mhm,
lot about how the child felt when they were under your rule and did need you. Like it's
mhm.
like this is how I felt when I needed to rely on you and now you're going to feel the same way. Whether that's mature or not is not the
Yeah.
discussion. It really is more about I needed you. This is how I felt like you treated me, so I'm going to give it to you in return cuz also you modeled that for me. Like,
Mm,
oh well, I put a roof over your head. It's like the the juxtaposition of how much we ask from men now in relationships and heteronormative relationships that we never used to ask. It was like, well, it's just good enough that he brings home the bacon,
Mm,
even if he's an alcoholic and beats the shit out of me. At least we have a roof over the head for the kids. Like all these kind of
yeah.
reckonings that we had to, or justifications. We ask now for emotional availability. And
Mhm.
many men are on board with that. And many guys are still like, ugh, you mean I have to talk about my feelings too? Why can't I just be a provider in other ways? And now you look at parents, it's like, ugh, you want to talk to me about your day and get empathy? Why isn't it enough that I put a roof over your head and gave you clothes growing up? It's like, because it's emotional neglect. Because you're literally defining childhood emotional neglect, which is trauma. And it's trauma I'm going to carry with me for all of adulthood until I go to my own trauma therapy, which I'm going to fucking send you the bill for. Because technically I didn't cause this, right? You have to take responsibility in adulthood. But if you look at where it stems from, a lot of this comes back to this, like this generational role reversal. And sometimes this happens when kids are still actual age of children, that the parents are putting an inappropriate amount of pressure and parentification on the
Mm,
child in the family system. And the triangulation is such that it's the child running the show and the parents are at the bottom of the triangle. And I've worked with so many parents genuinely who are afraid of their child and afraid of disappointing their child because they couldn't tolerate the child's emotional reaction.
yep.
Tell me that's not a window into how inversely or conversely they felt in their own family system.
Mhm.
And that's where we also hear, well, it's not the, if you know you think you're crying now, I'll give you something to cry about. It's not that kind of threat. It's more the perceived emotional threat that that adult had to go through, where they're like, I never got to talk back to my parents.
Mm,
I would have been hit if I had said anything, and here's my kid, and I know I don't want to hit my kid, but here's my kid saying something that I would have gotten smacked for if I talked back for, and I don't know how to respond because I don't want to do what my parents modeled to me, but I also never learned what to do instead. And that's again that tough generational
mm,
role reversal, where I think our generation is getting it better, not totally right, but we're getting better with parenting, apologizing. My
mm.
daughter's 5 months old, and if I accidentally, like, I was shutting the microwave the other day, and I bonked her with the handle. I always protect her head, but I bonked her, and I was like, "I'm so sorry. I didn't mean for that to." She didn't cry, but I'm, like, getting in the practice of being, like, not overly apologetic,
Mhm.
but taking accountability and ownership. I can't tell you how much of a difference that would have made if I had seen that modeled from my parents growing up, because
Mm,
your parents, believe it or not, for whoever's listening, we're just gonna blow your mind entirely today. They set the template for what you can expect to show up as if you don't do the conscious work to reprogram it. You will essentially view the role that your mom or dad had as husband or wife, whether you like it or not, and you will emulate it because that's the
mm.
template that got set of that's just what husbands do. That's just what wives do. Whether, again, it's conscious or not,
Yeah.
then you get in your partnership and they might have similar styles, right? Matriarchal or patriarchal cultures, but they might not. And then you're looking at it like, well, why do you expect me to not work? And then the husband is like, well, why do you expect to work? Like in my family, no one, blah, blah, blah. And then you're like, well, in my family, everyone, blah, blah. Like it causes
Mhm.
generational conflict, even at the spousal and partner level, because you don't always have the same. Hopefully, you weren't raised in the same house. We make that joke a
Yeah.
lot. You're not marrying somebody you grew up with in that sense,
Hopefully your family
please.
tree's not a
Yeah.
wreath.
Yeah.
Roll Tide.
Oh my god, yeah. Hopefully your family tree isn't a wreath. There we go.
What
That's
did you
that's the
what did
episode.
you think the first time you saw your wife? This is the best family reunion ever.
Yes, if that is you, this episode is not for you. You need a different podcast and probably therapy. Lots of therapy.
Most likely
Yeah.
they need a new
Yeah.
box of crayons and some Kleenex.
Mhm.
But anyways,
Mhm.
continue
Yeah,
on.
yes, yeah. So, yeah, you'll draw a different family picture. You have this that was so funny. You have this experience where you are wanting so desperately to escape the dysfunction of your family of origin when you partner with somebody in adulthood. It's like little
Mm,
you being like, finally we get out of this. And if you're not doing the conscious work either before or
yeah.
while that is happening, then you end up recreating and emulating what you
Mm,
did and did not like from your upbringing. And your
yeah.
spouse then becomes the role of whoever that was in the family. So, like, that's how the generations pass down either trauma or healing. And this role dysfunction and this role reversal can often lead you feeling like, why am I more of an adult than I feel like my parents either were when they were this age, meaning the age we're at, or are currently,
Mm,
right? If my parents are in their 60s or 70s, if you're listening to this, probably most of your parents, maybe 50s, but
yeah.
like 60s or 70s, and you're going to them expecting them to be like an adult, but then they give you a response that you're like, you never learned how to do this? Like, what? Like, okay, I guess I'm in it for myself. Like my brother had a friend who had to help his parents sell their house when he was like 24 or
Mm,
25. He had no clue how to, I wouldn't know how to do
no.
that, and I'm way older than he is. That friend was at the time, but he had to grow up very quickly because he reached a certain point where he's like, my parents have reached the limit of their competency.
Well,
They
and
were,
some of that is
yeah.
also jumping in and starting to put out the good healthy boundaries of like I should probably not be making that decision for you.
Hmm.
Like
Hmm.
in sometimes this ends up happening where I'll work with families where, maybe the father passed away or mom passed away, either one, whoever was the one that was in charge of the finances. Now the surviving significant other sort of in the throes of grief along with things I've never had to do before. And then the children can feel leveraged into all of a sudden I have to be my mom or dad's like wealth management, right? And that's another issue of like, oof, like, no, maybe that's when we step in and we say, we have to go find an actual wealth management like firm and let them
Yes.
stand in and do this stuff. Because I also don't want to put myself in a position where maybe my siblings in turn get frustrated at me because I'm controlling all these things I'm not supposed to be controlling.
Right.
And that's the thing that's always broken my heart is watching families split apart when it comes to money or comes to certain decisions
Yes.
where it's like, well, I
Yes.
was the only one that was willing to stand up. Sometimes you have to realize that you don't also have to be the only target in the room. So, yeah, you
Hmm.
can have a responsibility. You can say, you can go to mom or dad, hey, I think you should do these things. Well, why don't you, here's some names, numbers, whatever. You do your due diligence and you make a decision. But this is that other dynamic of it's okay at times to also challenge our parents in a healthy way and say, I don't think that's actually
Yes.
the best decision for you. You know,
Yes.
I had a,
And yeah, are you saying it's the best decision for the parent to make about their
about their
finances in
life,
this
their
example? About their
finances,
life.
their
Yeah, yeah.
life. Like, I mean, I remember I had a client that I was working with that his father passed away. The mom was in the throes of grief. He was kind of challenged because he was in this position of like it's the burden of leadership. He's the oldest male. I'm sorry if everyone's going to get offended, but in this family dynamic, like he was supposed to stand up, right? And so then he's feeling the pressure of he's trying to support mom and however she she needs, but then she pivoted and she's in grief and she's like, I want to sell the house, I want to get a small condo, I want to get this, I want to get all these things. And he was not challenging her. It's her money. She can do whatever she wants. But he's like, "Are you sure that's actually what you want, mom? Because like you enjoy having the grandkids come over and play in the pool. You enjoy
Mhm,
these
mhm.
things. Like, are we doing a knee jerk reaction, or are we doing like, is
Yeah.
this actually what you want? I just want to make sure that you make this clear." Well, mom decides to make the decision she's going to make, and then she ends up resenting those decisions. And what was interesting was watching my client then have to pivot where his siblings were like, "Well, see, you should have told her what she needed to do." It's like, isn't that
And if
interesting? We're
but
all
if
on the
but if
same
he
bus.
had it, then it would have gone better. Well, she could have figured it out on her own. It's a no-win
Yeah,
situation.
we're all on the same bus, and it's jumping off the cliff. Like it doesn't
Yeah.
work for anyone here.
Hey there, listeners. Are you tired of settling for less than you deserve in your relationships? Do you ever feel like you're not being seen, heard, or valued the way that you want? Or maybe you've been wondering why you keep attracting the same kinds of people into your life, or why certain patterns seem to repeat themselves in your relationships. The answer might be deeper than you think, and you can find it in my new course. Rewire Your Relationships is a transformative course designed to help you stop settling for less than you deserve and start embodying your most confident, assertive, and authentic self in your relationships. You'll explore how your early experiences and parental influences have shaped your views on love, dating, and self worth. This isn't just about tips and tricks for dating, it's about understanding the core beliefs that drive your relationships that you attract. You'll learn how to break free from those old patterns and start creating the kind of connections that truly reflect who you are. Imagine stepping into a relationship with clarity and confidence, knowing you're attracting people who value and respect you for who you really are, your deeply authentic self. The Rewire Your Relationship course gives you the tools to rewrite your relationship story one where you're no longer settling, but thriving. Visit taliabombola.com/rewire your relationships or check the link in the show notes for more.
I don't know if it's just I'm lucky where my practice is I work with a lot of people in like the last stages of lifespan development, but it's interesting because I have different experiences than most therapists in this regard
Mm-hmm.
of like having sat with widowers or widows or watching people at the end of their life. Like I'll never forget a couple that I was working with that we were literally, and I was always sort of checking them up a little bit, but we were literally working on um, what they wanted to spend their money on. And because there was such a bickering there. Now, neither one of them was actually like, let's save. It was just like,
Right.
are we going to go to Italy for a month or are we going to
Right.
build a new pizza oven in the backyard? Like
Mm-hmm.
there was all
Mm-hmm.
sorts of things that were popping out. What was interesting is they sort of moved into this like, hey, we've worked so hard for our money. We're going to spend it. We're going to enjoy it. And then their actual wealth management firm was like ringing them up and saying, hey, like, we're not going to be able to hit the standards we want to hit if you keep spending money.
Right. Right.
And what was interesting was they didn't have everyone in their sphere of influence was more than willing to support them in making these decisions because people were getting secondary gains out of them.
Of course.
But then as soon as they had to like come to the realization of like, oh, we don't want to lower our standard of living, so we're going to have to trim back, then all this noise came into the room. And so this also becomes one of those things of like being able to interact with your parents and say, is this the relationship that you want to have with us? Because like some problems that we can navigate is, hey, maybe we're blessed. Our parents have done very well for themselves. And so they want to take the families out on family vacations. They want to take us to nice places to eat and pay every time. You
Mm-hmm.
know,
Mm-hmm.
this is those instances where there's people that, again, I'm an adult now. I work hard for my money. I would like to pay for my own meal, or I would like to pay for your meal at some time,
Yes.
or I'd like to pay for my half of the vacation. And parents can sometimes move into this spot where they go, hey, we don't have a tremendous amount of influence over the kids anymore because they have their own houses, their cars, their jobs, their careers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So let's just splurge money on them. So if we splurge money on them, then that'll give them a reason to have a relationship with me. Well, it's my
Not necessarily the
responsibility.
case.
Exactly. It's my responsibility as that child and also as just a good human being to be like, I'll have a relationship with you without you having to do these things. Like I
Mm-hmm.
don't need you to hand me money on my birthday anymore. Like a card is good
Right.
enough, or a little
Right.
family
Right.
dinner at home, good
Right.
enough. Because we have to pay attention to how we are developing these relationships because then sometimes there can be a reverse entitlement.
For some families, they they experience the look at all I've done for you, like I raised you to this
Hmm.
point, and then there's the parental assumption that it will remain as close,
Yep.
thinly veiled attempt at calling it close, as close, it was either like controlled or as
Yep.
enmeshed as it was in adulthood. And again, who how your kids treat you when they are no longer obligated to behave in a certain way to yield a certain result, like the collegiate
Yeah.
athlete, where it's like, I know what I want and I know how the role I have to play in my family to get it. I'm not advocating for kids being, you know, completely disrespectful and rude, but to your point, also being able to speak up, being able to stand out. This came up around Mother's Day in my family. I think it was yesterday. My parents had agreed to help watch the baby because I'm starting with a
Yeah.
new therapist. So my mental state was already like, I have to play fetch with the dog for 20 minutes before I have this session. I've been waiting for this session for weeks because she's a very specialized therapist. I was not in the headspace to have any conversations about anything. I was just trying to play fetch and
Mm,
then go to therapy. And then my dad, very well meaning, and did not know that I had been consuming so much Mother's Day content, my eyes were going to explode. Um, decides to ask, "Hey, have you and your brother planned anything for your mom for Mother's Day?" And
mm,
I lost it. I snapped and I said, "It's my day. It's my first Mother's Day. This is not me planning for mom." And it's this. I'm still working through this, obviously. So this is in
yeah.
live time if you're seeing this or listening to this episode. Therapists have their own junk to work through too,
What?
and their junk drawer mentally. That I was like, why is it that I don't feel
Mm,
like it's her day? what is it about this transition that now I'm experiencing it for myself for the first time, and that's where I agree with those videos of like, it's for the mom in the trenches. You don't have little
Mm,
kids at home. You don't have I'm doing the dog and the baby by myself. Like, you don't have the same system set up that I do. It's my day. Like, it's not that it's not your day, but in my
yeah.
view, I'm like, you've already graduated to grandparent.
Mm,
You are now a grandmother. You have a totally separate role in my life. You have a new additional role. It's not just you're my mom and I'm your daughter. It's you're my mom, I'm your daughter, but I also have a daughter, and now I'm the mother and you're the grandmother. Like, there's so much going on that I feel like systemically looking at it, if anybody's listening to this and feeling like betwixt and between, it's these big holidays that often cause this,
mhm,
and these big end of life developmental events that cause this feeling of like, why doesn't my parent feel like a parent anymore? It's
mm.
because we're at this new phase of adulthood and we can't look back to previous generations for guidance because A, the lifespan was less, and the amount of emotional discussions that were being had were pretty much none. So there's no groundwork for it, not only because of chronological age being a limiting
Mhm,
factor. There wasn't the availability of these discussions to look to previous generations of like, how do you navigate when everyone's an adult, when it truly is just little children under, let's say, age 10 for most families
yeah,
from a lot of what I'm around. Obviously, if you have teenagers, this applies to you too, but like,
yeah,
if you're the family member who has very little kids and you're between 30 to 40, but your mom is in their 70s or 80s and they're trying to be like, well, it's my day too. It's like, did you not have enough of these growing up when I had to tend to you, and now you're
mhm.
still asking me to do that even though she's 5 months old. Do you really think she's going to make me breakfast in bed? No. She can't do that. She can't do that. She doesn't have the dexterity for that yet. And my dog definitely doesn't have thumbs, so she can't do that
She is
either.
named after a
Yeah.
pancake, like, so she should
Yeah,
be
she
able
already
to
is a
bring you
breakfast.
some breakfast foods. I mean, what's the
She is the
point?
breakfast in bed.
Okay,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah. So it's like, how do you navigate these new milestones and new family systems that have evolved over time that do come to a head around the holidays? They're very stressful because not everybody's close to their family. And like the clients I work with who it's a strained relationship,
mhm,
there's so much pressure placed on holidays in general. And
yeah,
later this year, we'll do a whole other one on those, the fall holidays. But there's so much pressure placed on this where it's like, yes, you are a mother, but at least from my generation, it's like
mm,
when my child has a child, which is hopefully many, many years from now, I I have the envisionment and I've already done the work and will do the work in my own therapy to have it be like, now is my time
mm,
to care for you. It's
for
not
sure.
your time to care for me anymore. Like, I think that's what it really is like, that's the role reversal of like, you were my child, you always will be my child, and you celebrated my Mother's Day for so
Mhm,
long. Now I see you become a mother, and if there's any sort of grandparenting is not a do-over, which I know that that's the case, but if it were a do-over, that's the time to do it over. Like, give your kid the break that you wish you had been
oh,
given
yeah,
when they were that age. Like, at least try to make it somewhat even. Yeah.
and let's say the quiet part out loud. Everything that we're talking about is how it's supposed to go,
Yeah.
actually. Like,
Yeah.
there's a point in time where you become sort of a parental colleague to your
Yes.
parents. Like
Yes.
you're
Yes.
actually on level playing field here. Like,
Mhm.
they take care of their house, you take care of your
Mhm.
house. And I think
Yes.
that the toxicity is when we get stuck in the fact that I don't ever bust out and have my own life, my own house. I don't make my own decisions.
Mhm.
And a lot of that is really ingrained in different forms of triangulation or enmeshment. And you're going to trust me, the family system is going to be hostile to you. So you feel like you're the crazy
Mhm.
one
Mhm.
because you're not willing to play along with this game just because we know how to play the game, but it's not necessarily good for us. Like, the best relationships that you can possibly have with your parents are the ones in which you are differentiated. Like, when you have the space to actually miss
Yep.
them, when you have the space to actually seek their expertise. If you
Yes.
don't get that opportunity because you're sort of still in the subservient role, then the relationship you're going to have is going to suck. And I'm sorry to say it that way. It's not to make it feel fatalistic, but
Mm-mm.
if you've ever been to one of those funerals where you can notice that they do like sort of the open mic, and that's not for like a comedy sketch, but like for you to get up there and say some
Yeah.
things. What's interesting is I always pay attention to the children when people are up there talking about their loved one that has passed away. Because what
Mhm.
you'll end up finding out is you'll look at some stranger will get up there and talk about this person and talk about how much they loved, cared, or how influenced they were by this. And you look over to this person's children and they don't know who that person is because they never got to experience that
Yes.
person that way.
Yes.
And that's the
Exactly.
relationship I don't want to have. I don't want to have the relationship with my mother or father where I didn't know them because I was stuck in a role that didn't allow me to actually pop up and see them for the challenges that they did have to navigate, the victories that they
Yeah.
did have. It's I think
Mhm.
the one thing that I will say that it seems like our generation is getting, and I'll say it's just the one thing, is we're recognizing that no one gets out of this life without scars.
Mhm.
There's been such a push in previous generations, it seems like, to have the facade of like we're gonna come into the world pure and leave pure. Like it ain't gonna happen.
Mhm.
Sorry about that.
Mm-mm.
This is an inherently broken place. We are going to have cuts. We're
Yeah.
going to have scarring. There's going to be wounds. And the more that we're willing to walk through and say these wounds don't define us, but they help build the story, I think the better we're all off.
Mhm. Verbally experiencing your parent through story as somebody that you do not recognize them as I imagine a similar feeling that parents who are out of touch with their children hear when the kid feels the need to keep something secret of
Yeah.
from in high not we're not talking about like partying, but like I joined this book club, I did this, I did that. It's because I didn't want in the child sense in the family system, I didn't want it to be taken away from me. I didn't want it to be judged. I didn't
Yeah.
want it to be marred in some way. That's not the same experience that when you're in adulthood and you're looking around, or like you gave the example of being at a funeral where the person is like describing, you're like, that's my parent. Like, I never, parents have a life before they have kids, but that's so different than it being like they were never nice at home. They were never this at home. They put on a front to
Mm,
everybody else and they don't act in that way at home can be another layer of this complex grief where I learned this lesson very early on doing
yeah.
grief work where the person had someone had passed away and I said, I'm so sorry for your loss. And they said, don't be, I hated that bitch. And I was like, well, here we go. Okay, learn my lesson to not say I'm sorry for your
Therapist ears
loss.
are popping up a little bit.
I just say there are no words because it's true. In either direction, there are no words that are going to either take away the pain, cover the joy,
Mm,
whatever type of, relationship you had with the person who is
yeah.
passing on or passed on. That's not for me to put a name to it, let
Yeah.
alone judge. And that's the adaptation that people can take to their family system. You might know your
Mm,
family in a way that nobody else ever will, and this is where siblings come into the
yeah.
picture heavily because at least you have somebody to my favorite reels are the ones where it's like when you call your sibling or when you look at your sibling and you're like double checking to make sure that that was as unhinged as you think it was, and you like call them after the family function for the debrief where you're like, what the was going on with mom? And like there's something somewhat of a gift to
Oh,
have
yeah.
siblings that you're actually close to and can commiserate with, but there's also times where one sibling is still enmeshed, one sibling has individuated,
Yeah,
and that can cause further double conflict within the
for
family
sure.
system because then they triangulate with it's a lot. Like now that we talk about it, none of these holidays should exist. This is just a recipe. I mean, we're never going to be out of a job, but this is just a recipe for so much drama where it's like then I honestly felt bad meaning
Mhm.
like I shouldn't be doing, and not that I was shame, but I'm trying to
Yeah,
think if it was like more guilt or shame. Uncomfortable. At a minimum, I felt uncomfortable that
agreed.
I was advocating for something that, like you said, I think is very normal. That my
Mm,
family and my brother were like, well, she's still your mother. And I'm like, that is separate from the fact that this is my first Mother's Day. Like, really? She can't let it go. Again, it was just this deep, it's obviously something I have to work through, but there was this deep feeling of like, oh, I'm alone in this. You guys don't see it the way
well,
that I
because
do.
if you differentiated, if you actually
Yeah.
said, "Oh, no, I'm gonna have
Yeah.
my own Mother's Day,"
Yeah.
then, "Oh, shit, that means
Yeah.
we have to take care of her."
Exactly,
and
and that's what it's been like for
that's the
years. I don't
big
join
thing.
family holidays, I don't go to mass on them anymore, like, for years since I have moved away. Like, I just it's not I got enough of it and felt like I was forced into it growing up that the second I broke free, I didn't want to go back to that.
Well,
That's not the
and it's also
lifestyle I
not
want.
disrespectful because that's what I can hear other people be like, "Oh, well,
Yeah.
you should respect your mom, and that's why you do it this way." Like, no, I'm also respecting my mother by not doing things with her that I don't find joy in.
Yeah.
Because like, who's going to actually say, "Oh man, that was so meaningful knowing that you felt obligated to attend mass with me." God, it really helped me there. Or
So
like,
true.
"Thank you so much for coming over
Yeah.
for 2.5 hours after discussing it with your husband and
Yeah.
saying that's all you're going to do because
Yeah.
you felt like you
Mhm.
owed me something." That really
Mhm.
made
Oh,
me
what a
feel good.
gift.
Like, so good.
You're a saint.
Like, so, like, allow that side of the relationship to work as well. Hey, no, if we're gonna spend time together, we're gonna be extremely diligent on how we do it and deliberate.
You're allowed to set boundaries on it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and so that
Yeah.
was it's interesting because, I'll so the first like, when we had Lorelai, you know, first Mother's Day is like a stone's throw from there. It's 3 weeks, and then
Mhm.
it's first
Mhm.
Mother's Day, right?
Mhm.
So, all I remember is I remember my mom telling me as a young boy, like, "Do not screw up the first Mother's Day for your wife." Okay? So
Good
I
message.
so I didn't. So I got the flowers, I got the chocolates. She was keto, so I got keto chocolates. Like, I got everything I needed. I
Mhm.
did the whole thing. And then I'll never forget, I get a phone call like 3 days later. It's my mom. "Where's my card?" And I was like, "Oh, I forgot to send you a card." It's been pretty busy though. I have like a 3-week old, I got a wife, like, but let me share with you, like, I didn't screw up her first Mother's Day. And she's like,
I took your advice,
and
yeah.
she was like, "Yeah, but you know, you forgot about me. I love you to death, mom, but you're not my primary. I'm sure dad got you. I'm sure dad gave you a card, gave you some gifts, took you to
Mhm.
dinner. Like, I love you to death, mom, but like, it wasn't malicious. It was an accident.
Right.
Like, I'm sorry. I literally went out at like 2 a.m. in between breastfeedings.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
wasn't feeding. But anyways, I did like it.
So advanced of you.
Yeah. Like, I made it work. But so these
Yeah.
are those instances where again you get to choose
Yes.
the relationship that you're going to have of like, oh yeah, well, but dad should do those things. Like that because he's your husband. I
Mhm. Yeah, yes.
I can't handle it.
You and I have a similar philosophy on that, and my brother was saying, what he's like, "Well, we shouldn't have to do that for you because you're not our mom." And I said, again, she's 5 months old. Until she's old enough to do things for me, it falls on other people in the family, which I think for most family systems, they're not like, that's not the most outlandish, depending on obviously your family dynamic. But I'm with you on that. It's like that generation has passed. Like that, the torch gets passed to the person who made that person a mom. Yes, the kid made the person a mom, but like technically it's the couple that created the
Yeah.
child together. That it's like that's who it gets passed back to, of like, you can honor her. Again, it wasn't intentional. You're not sitting there being like, Mother's Day card for my mother-in-law, Mother's Day card for Jill, no, not for my own mom. Like, it's not
Yeah.
malicious. It's your brain becomes consumed with the family that you've just created, rightfully so. That's
Correct.
healthy. And of course, the people that are in your family of origin are going to have their own feelings about it, much to your point of like, well, then it all falls on me. And it's like, I've done my time.
Hmm.
I did my time in this asylum, and I'm out. And I'm out. I broke free. I'm now in the just visiting of the jail part of Monopoly. I don't have to do this anymore.
Yeah. I would always encourage you just pay attention to why am I taking the hostilities I am? Like, why is the
Mm-hmm.
conflict there? And a lot of times,
Mm-hmm.
what you'll realize is that hesitation or that resistance is hiding behind the fact that you were the primary one, right? So, if I know Talia at all, you were the cruise director.
Yes.
You had mom's day is going to look like this. You meet here. I already made the reservations. You show up. I got the gift. You Venmo me $40. We'll hand it to her. So yeah, oh shit, I'm missing the person that has been the one to take like that gap
Mm-hmm.
and fill it.
Mm-hmm.
And now
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna have to do my own like intrinsic thought process. I'm gonna have to like,
Mm-hmm.
this is going to be
And
difficult.
we always have had that circular type of conversation of, and it's not a, I think it's good to double check with people
Yeah,
so you're not booking, so many different things. That part I think is functional. But there was this, I remember a certain year where I was like, I'm out. Like, I don't want to plan all the things. My brother and I would try to alternate years,
yeah,
or hey, I got dinner, you got this. Like, we would do a
for
pretty good
sure.
job of that. But there was a certain point, I think it was honestly when I was doing my own therapy in my early 20s,
Mm,
realizing the parents as people thing, that I'm like, this is fucked up. Like, there are a lot of parts of my family system that I do not want to repeat, and I can't see my parents in the same
mm,
way because of all these revelations. And that, I know, for me, was what motivated me to take more space away,
yeah,
because it felt uncomfortable to continue to participate in the systems that I didn't like, that
yep,
I now couldn't unsee were dysfunctional. And so my brother has taken over a lot of the, I would say, the let me do this, or let me schedule this, or we would
mm,
collaborate together and like text, hey, what do you want to do for this, which I think is kind to do. But yes, at a certain point it's like, well, and I said I would do the same thing if you had your first Father's Day this year. It's not that we
mm,
wouldn't honor dad, but I would be more focused on like getting you a first Father's Day card, or asking you what you wanted to do, because for 40 something years we've asked dad what he's wanted to do. Like, I think there's just a different like passing of the torch that either not both
yeah,
siblings or all siblings are on the same page on, or not every member of the family is on the same page on, because it's a new
mm,
system. And they will never know in terms, they know they can probably think back to what it was like ethereally in their first
yeah,
Mother's or Father's Day themselves, but they don't know what it feels like to be me or to be you on our
nope.
first Mother's Day or Father's Day. They're not in our mind like that, or in our heart like that.
So, I mean, I hope that the encouragement you guys are getting out of this podcast episode is like, it's okay to start sort of framing out that boundary work. Like,
Mm-hmm.
the resistance that you're feeling inside of yourself to either participate in things you don't want to participate in,
Yeah.
or trying to do things differently, that's actually part of the process. Like,
Mm-hmm.
there's a reason why we get married, we have our own families, we do stuff like this. You are living your own
Mm-hmm.
lives, and so certain things you don't have to participate in. And that's not you being automatically rude or selfish or all these other things that sometimes get projected onto us. Because I like to ask people that I have deep relationships with, do you want me to spend time with you because that's what I cherish, or do you want me to spend time with you because you think I'm moving into servitude or obligation? No, well,
Yeah.
never servitude, never obligation. Okay. Then no, because I'll still have friends that will call me at times and be like, "Ugh, can you help me with this thing? I'm so sorry for the inconvenience." If I'm going to go, you don't have to keep apologizing on the inconvenience or
Right.
whatever it is.
Right.
I made the choice. I want you to
Right.
know, when I want to spend time with you, I'm going to spend time with you. When I don't want to spend time with you, I won't spend time with you.
That's me too. Yeah.
So you have to, like, these are our boundaries. So like,
Mm-hmm.
you can always rest assured, if I'm around you, that's what I wanted to do. Because if I wanted to
Yeah.
be at home or I wanted to be doing something else, I wouldn't be around you. That's not
Mm-hmm.
me being rude. That's just me being authentic.
Yeah. Yeah. What I would like to leave listeners with, if you've made it this far in the episode, is that someone choosing to be hurt by what you did is not the same thing as you hurting them intentionally.
Mm,
And the intent in
well
creating a
said.
differentiated and individuated family system is so that you, on a macro level, so that you can spare your child from what you feel like you had to heal from, or spare your
Mm,
child from growing up in a childhood where in adulthood they have to now go to therapy to heal from their childhood.
yep. Success in my life will be my child not having the same emotional wounds I did. That will be
Same.
success.
Same.
So I know that they will have some. I'm not perfect. I'm never going to be perfect.
Right.
I can't shield them from the world. But
Right.
as long as their wounds are not like my wounds, we're good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right, people, sign off. Drive safe. We'll see you guys later. Yeah,
Goodbye. Enjoy Mother's Day now
yeah,
that we've
yeah.
fucked with your head.
Yeah. Tell your mom I say hi. So,
Sign my name in her card.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
We'll see you in a couple weeks if you're still around. Thank you so much for listening to another episode of Between Two Clinicians. We would so appreciate if this episode resonated with you for you to share it with somebody, and also find your favorite podcast platform and like, rate, and subscribe to the podcast. We would love to attract more listeners just like you and have this message be spread to whoever needs it. So thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.